Jenny, happy 1 year anniversary on your bookstore, Bookish Boutique.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been a crazy year. It doesn't quite feel like a year. It just went by so fast.
How did you get the idea to open a bookstore?
Long story short, I'm located in Panama City, Florida, so that's where the bookstore is located. And I grew up going to like Books a Million. At one point we had like a Borders here, and I just went there and like didn't think twice about it. And then I got more affiliated with a local book club here, and everyone was just like talking about like, oh my gosh, like people are just talking about how they had to travel other places for independent bookstores. And I was like, that's insane. The reason why there aren't a lot of independent bookstores is because it's very hard to financially make it work. The profit margins are very, very low. And then, you add in overhead costs, whether it's like rent, employees, all the things that a lot of people, unless you're in the middle of it, you don't really think about it. And it's really hard to make all those numbers work. And so I was like, well, we had a few, but it was more of like a bar and there were just books there. It was called the Library on Beck. So it was a completely different business model, and they were no longer in business, but that was pretty much like the only independent bookstore that we had here. And so I was working with my business coach, and she was kind of coaching me through the process of what it would look like to open a bookstore. And I really wasn't really on board to open it as quick as we did, but then I randomly saw the building for lease that we're in now. And it so happened to be the same landlord that I had at my other business that I was actually in the process of closing out. It was just a different season of my life, and I was totally at peace with the decision. It was built in the 1930s, and it has the original Chipley brick in it. Like everything is original, and it's located in the cutest little historic downtown, like on the water. It is in the middle of a growth spurt, I guess. Like they're trying to do a lot of improvements. Like we have these beautiful pavers that are about to be laid down as like the road when you come in, and bigger sidewalks. And I called my fiance, and of course, bless his heart, he's very supportive of me, but he was like, what are you doing? I was like, no, this is it. Like it could be so different. Like I know I'm like going, out on a limb here, but I don't want that like cookie cutter corporate feel bookstore. I want something like very like edgy, very feminine. I love pink. I love wine. I love books. And so I was like, let's just do it. And so we opened in 25 days. It was the most stressful 25 days of my life. But, going back to that overhead cost, I was like, I can't do a 6 month build out. Like it's not feasible. I really need to make this happen now. And so my fiance and my father-in-law, like they came and worked at night. I took care of the kids during the day. And so during that time I hired like our staff. So we have like 7 people that work here, and it all came together by the grace of God, because it was a lot of, like seeing the vision and watching it all come together. But it was actually super accepted by our community because they really, I mean, we have other like corporate companies, everyone orders from Amazon, but the need was they wanted a place that was a community feel. And so I was like, that's sometimes very hard to make happen for some people. So that was my mission. Like that was the mission behind the company. And I went on a local magazine podcast over in like the Destin area of Florida, and they put my episode out, and they actually named it Creating Community One Book at a Time. And that was kind of just like what really is now our mission statement. So, but yeah, so that's kind of how it all came about.
How do you remain profitable? Because you said like you had to talk to your business coach about this. This is something that leads to a lot of failures in bookstores, not only independent bookstores, but you mentioned Books a Million. It's hard to find a Books a Million. You mentioned Borders. I don't think Borders is even in existence anymore. So how do you finagle the numbers, finagle the business to remain
Right.
profitable?
The biggest thing that I would recommend to like anybody is don't ignore like all of the inventory reports that you have access to, because like you can go out and look at your bookstore, in person, but unless you're looking like not at the end of the year when you're filing taxes, but like all the time at like your profit margins, pulling what's not selling, stocking what's selling the most, and all those different things. I mean, that's a very like minimal part of it, but the reason why we have like a gift, so whether it's like mugs, apparel, Kindle accessories, we have a large gift section. And the reason for that is because the profit margins on that are a lot higher than the books. Profit margins on those are even less for anyone that is considered an indie author. But it's really important to support. That's why we always carry them, but that's why you don't see a lot of bookstores carry them. Our best seller in our gift section are blind dates with a book. Every weekend on Saturday and Sunday, people may not necessarily need to come in and buy a book. They just want to come in. Like they just want to like have the experience. And not everyone, and I get asked a lot about this, not specifically like people in the industry, but people that like have no idea about like the book talk or whatever. They're like, how are you surviving when everyone just reads electronically? And I'm like, well, not everyone reads electronically. Like you have plenty of people that will literally read it on their Kindle, but they have to have that book trophy and they still want to come in and get that book. So it's just, it's kind of a lot of different things, but I think the reason why we've been able to make it work is because we didn't box ourselves in when this whole thing was established as just classifying ourselves as a bookstore. We're so much more than that. And then now we do have our wine bar. So that is our newest venture. We kind of rolled that out on our 1 year anniversary, and it's been so fun. I think people are a little bit like, what the heck are you doing whenever I announce that? But it's just that additional layer of experience whenever you come in. You come in with your girlfriend and, you shop around and you're just like nerding out off of this, book that, you're like pointing on the shelf and you're like, oh, did you read that or whatever? And then they get to come and sit on our pink couch and like have a glass of wine and just hang out. So it kind of just goes with this community feel that we want to have. Hopefully every customer, gets that experience whenever they come in. So that's been a lot of fun. And you see a lot of bookstores that have coffee shops in them. And the reason for that is because it really helps with the profit margin. I love coffee, but I did not want to have a coffee shop in the bookstore because I just feel like that is more common, and I just feel like the wine is different, and that's kind of what we wanted to be was a little bit different. And we had a little bit of a blessing in disguise happen. The building next to us was vacant for a really long time, and a coffee shop moved in next door. So it kind of just like all worked out perfectly.
It sounds like such a vibe, just like the way you have it decorated, the way the building is and the location and all of the things. I
Yeah.
have to talk about your merch because I have seen it on your website, I've seen it on your Instagram, and I am obsessed. There are a few things I already want to buy. My husband used to play hockey, and you have a
Oh
shirt
gosh.
that says, "In my hockey romance era."
Yes.
And I'm just getting into smutty books. I think I have to own the Smut University
Yeah.
sweatshirt. Where do you get this amazing bookish merch?
So my previous company that I closed out, it was actually like a graphic t-shirt company. So that's kind of why like our apparel, like we have a very diverse section of different apparel because we make all of our apparel like in-house. We carry all genres. So even though we're a pink bookstore, I think sometimes people think we're only like a romance bookstore, but we have all kinds of genres. And that's why I love that we don't create all of our merch. Like we don't like create our like coffee mugs or anything like that. We partner with other companies for that. But because we have access to make our own apparel, we can literally like make apparel for all of these different genres that we know our customers enjoy. It doesn't have to only be like romance. Believe it or not, one of our genres that does really well for us, and this was a little bit of a surprise to me, I love thriller, but our thriller, that's like a huge seller for us. And they all kind of, go through different like waves of popularity. I think a lot of it has to do with what new book is like going viral or what have you. We make our apparel in-house, so that's why we can kind of, get a little bit more specific on what we're able to carry.
And you have a book club too.
So we host book clubs, so they like can come in and like they'll bring in their own cheese board or whatever. But I we had a lot of people that they were like, well, why don't you have your own? And I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I just figured, we have people that come in and host their own book club, but ours is very specific, so we only choose, for the most part, like I think last month was the first month we picked one book that wasn't, but any other time we always pick indie authors. It was really cool. We actually got to do a Zoom call with one of the authors that we chose for 1 month, and she got on and was able to tell us like a little bit more background about her book, and she was just so nice. Like sometimes I feel like you forget when you're reading a book that these authors are still just normal people. And like she was literally watching a hockey game like before the Zoom and like had her hockey jersey on or whatever. And she was just like, oh, sorry, I just, I really had to watch this game. I mean, they're just like normal people. So it's kind of cool being able to do things like that. Um, and sometimes when the author is traditionally published, they have a lot going on, and a lot of times you have to work through somebody on their team. Working with the indie authors, they are able to have more flexibility to do like a Zoom call like that, so that's pretty neat. And all of the books are great, just people don't maybe know about them yet.
Colleen Hoover was one of those indie authors, and then Book Talk and Bookstagram changed the game for her. There are so many people who have found success because of people like you and people like us who go on Bookstagram and Book Talk. It's not Instagram and TikTok for us. It's Bookstagram and Book
Yeah,
Talk. I know
exactly.
Geneva Rose is one. I interviewed her on my last podcast, and she talked about how she blew up on Book Talk because she wrote a thriller and she got on there speaking as if she were a character in the book, and people were like blown away thinking that she really was an attorney who was defending her husband for killing his mistress. And that's how her
Right.
book blew up. So I think that is so cool that you are shining a light on these indie authors. For people who are listening or watching who may be interested in opening a bookstore or starting a book club or trying to turn their bookish passion into profit, what would you tell them to do? What have you learned? What mistakes have you made?
You're going to have a lot of people that will probably tell you that it's not doable or possible. Anything is possible as long as you work really hard and do the research. So don't let that phrase prevent you. But I mean, it is hard. I'm not going to lie to you. Like it's very hard, even though we've been in it for a year. There's still so many things that I need to learn. But I will say that the best resource to use if you do want to use open a bookstore, whether it's mobile, online, whatever, brick and mortar, is the ABA, America's Bookstore Association, Booksellers Association. There's so much information. It's a little bit overwhelming, so you kind of just have to like piece by piece like go through things, but those people want to help people that have this vision. I still use it to this day, so it's not like just something you use only to open a bookstore and then you never use it again. Like you have a monthly membership with them. There's a lot of bookstores that I follow and they are so successful. And although we did not start this way, I know a lot of them did actually start by simply being a pop-up bookstore. So they went to different markets on the weekends. And I think that is a fantastic way to build your brand. That way, when you do open, people already know about you and you have that community support that you need to continue to grow. I was told by banks, this isn't going to work. Like, this is not a thriving community. And I know I see you smiling. I mean, it's just, you are told that, and you just have to find the people that understand and appreciate your vision. So as long as you find those people and work hard, it is possible.
What do you think is the the thing that's made you successful and has kept you in business for a year? Is it social media? Is it the local community? What would you attribute that to?
I would definitely say it's a mix of social media. I mean, that is I wear a lot of hats, like being the owner of the bookstore, but my main role is our social media accounts, and we're very active on all of them. I think that has played a huge part because I was already growing our social media accounts before we even opened our doors. So that is huge. But it's also because, that's where a lot of these Bookstagram and Book Talk people are that appreciate the indie bookstore. So I think in our line of work, social media is huge because there are so many people on there that cater to our style of business. But I also think too is just when you do open, and I know I've said it like lots of times, is creating that community feel because these people, like your customers, can literally shop anywhere. I mean, they don't even have to leave their house to buy books. So if you're not giving them something more than that, it's going to be very difficult to continue your growth. So that is a big thing, is just figure out who you want to be and how that's going to continue to play a vision in your business because it's big. People need to understand who they're supporting and why do they need to support you. It makes me really excited to see more bookstores opening because, like I said, I was told a lot of times that it wasn't doable, but I think things are changing for us independent bookstore owners, and that makes me really happy. But, if you can support indie bookstores, just do your best to because we really try to play our part in the book community, but in order for us to do that, we definitely have to get support from fellow book lovers out there.
I don't have a bookstore, but my tip would be make it a vibe the way you have made yours a vibe. Like, don't
Yeah.
just make your bookstore Instagram worthy, but like, I just want to hang out in them. And I would much rather hang out in a bookstore that is a unique and cool vibe than, like you pointed out, your commercial Barnes and Noble.
Yeah. Yeah. It's scary, but sometimes you just have to take the leap and be different.